Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. It's Saturday night. I'm Paul John Dykes. Who else would you like to join you on a Saturday night than Double Denim, Chris McElwain? There he is. That smile, that enthusiasm. And we're here, of course, for the Scottish Cup tie against Raith Rovers. It's at home, and it's a lineup that a lot of people were calling for all week, Chris. Now, for several different reasons. There are people who need game time. There are people who need rested for Wednesday night. I think there's a reasonably sized game coming up during the week. And obviously, that has been reflected in the starting 11. Just yesterday on this very show, the Friday Bulletin, we spoke about the Schmeichel thing. And when is Sinisalo ever going to get a game? Well, tonight's the night. We're going to see him making his debut.
Yeah, there's a couple of permutations that we spoke about that have actually ended up being reflected in the team. The Schmeichel one, yeah, I mean, obviously the early rumours about that was it's a back injury, so hopefully it's just a precaution that are leaving him out. And I think it's the opportunity to do it. You're playing Raith Rovers, you're at home, heavy favourites, albeit paying all due respect to Raith. I'm sure they'll give us a game, but especially with Barry Robson in the dugout. But I think, good opportunity for Sinisalo to come in and show what he can do. We've not seen really anything from him so far this season. I think we saw him a little bit in pre-season, but we've not really seen him at all in any competitive action. So, good chance for him to play in front of the lights at Parkhead. Hopefully we'll get a good reception from the fans. And, I'm hoping he's not calling any action too much, but good opportunity for him to, maybe show what we might see over the next few years.
We need to see him at some point. And obviously the thing we spoke about yesterday, which I love a wee bit of football trivia, was the fact that I could think of 4 Celtic goalkeepers whose fathers had also been professional footballers. There were comments coming in talking about Simon and Andy Lynch and all these guys, but it's all about them being a goalie. Celtic goalkeepers whose fathers were also professional footballers. Casper and Peter Schmeichel, of course, Jonathan and Bobby Gould. We also had Ronnie Simpson's old fella, Jimmy. Can you remember the 4th? How's your memory? Can you remember the 4th?
Yeah, I had it in my head a minute ago because I was thinking about this. I thought you'd bring this up. It was Peter, wasn't Peter, what's his face?
Gordon Marshall.
That was Gordon Marshall. So it was, yeah.
Gordon Marshall. So there's the 4 goalies whose fathers.
My memory is going in old age.
I'll keep testing the old grey matter. Don't you worry. But what I found interesting today, the news, as you say, the news broke pretty early doors today. Said, you know what, Peter Schmeichel's son, I almost called him Peter. Peter Schmeichel's son, Casper, is injured. He's going to miss the game tonight. And the chat around the campfire around that one was, look, it's nothing serious. If we were playing Bayern Munich, he'd have played. That's how that's how unserious it is, if that's even a word. And however, Sinisalo comes in. So I was having a wee look at him and I didn't realise Sinisalo's granddad was an actor. He was an actor.
Yeah.
Yes, his name is Vico Sinisalo. He looks like a Finnish Ray Winston. Go and look it up.
He absolutely does. Actually, when you put the picture up on the group chat, I thought that's Ray Winston.
It's dead like him, isn't it? It really is. You know what? I'm going to have to bring that up at some point. But before we do that,
you can get it. It's brilliant.
James Devine. Good evening to you, James. It's always a pleasure to hear from you on the socials as well.
Yeah.
Paul John and Chris Double Denim. That name's going to stick, my friend. Paddy Lavery, always a pleasure to see you as well coming in on the chat. Will be interesting to see how the team performs. Well, it always is when you make so many changes because there is no rhythm and fluidity to a team that's never played together. That's the only, I think, worry that I get, and I've seen it in the past. You may remember us getting beaten under Neil Lennon against Morton at home. Alan Moore's Morton beat us 1-0. Dougie Emery scored a goal. Celtic threw in a mishmash of a team, if you like. I know there were big players that night. Beaton played, Van Dijk played, but the team itself hadn't played as a unit. That always concerns me, regardless of the opposition. But I guess as a manager, Chris, you're looking at your squad and saying any permutation should be able to get this job done. That's what you should be doing as a Celtic manager.
Absolutely, yeah. And look, the personnel he's brought in, I don't think there's anyone there who's lacking in game time, apart from maybe Sinisalo and Dane Murray, who obviously comes into the lineup. And that was something I spoke about yesterday. I thought if you're going to bring him in, this is a game to do it. So Dane Murray is in there next to Scales. But outside of Sinisalo and Scales, I mean, Yanks had plenty of football. He's come in. Maeda and Kuhn, okay, Maeda looks as though he's playing up front, but you'd expect them to have more than enough about them. And it's a strong midfield. You know, McCowan in there. It's the kind of players that we would have expected to see. Maybe question marks over Slip, but I mean, my goodness, he's an experienced player, right? So he's may not be experienced with these teammates, but you know, surely to goodness, this is a challenge he can step up to. So, lots of different things to look out for today. Lots of different individual performances that we'll want to check out. For me, I hope Dane Murray uses it as an opportunity to show that him being farmed out and then coming back in, you know, he merits being brought into the first team fold. I think he needs to shake off what was probably a tough time after the European game where he gave away the goal. So it'd be nice to actually see him step up and, you know, regain a bit of confidence. Scales is a bit of an old hand now, isn't he, when it comes to playing in that defence? So he's a senior man that can hopefully help him out and elevate Dane Murray up to the maximum level tonight as well.
Well, I need to say that these are the things, Chris, that you look at and you think, well, you know, if you can't do it at this level, then you shouldn't actually be at Celtic. Now, that sounds brutal, but that's just the reality of it. And this is reality of Sinisalo's granddad.
It's Ray Winston. I don't care what anyone says. That is Ray Winston.
The Finnish Ray Winston. For anyone who's not seen the team, here it is at Sinisalo in goals. Is there a look of a young Ray Winston in there? Probably.
There's a little bit, by the way. I'm telling you,
now you mention it.
You need to stick him in a Borstal.
Oh, let's not do the gardening work in the greenhouse. Sinisalo, absolutely right. Tony Ralston at right back. I suggested he might play Tony Ralston. Schlupp again yesterday. I called it, and again, if you can't come in against a Raith Rovers side who are not flying in the Championship, it's got to be said. Yeah. Then you shouldn't be here. So I've got no concerns about Schlupp. And then the middle two of Murray and Scales, like you say, Scales now, the old statesman, there's no hiding place because we don't have Carter Vickers and Trusty on the bench. Nawrocki, I mean, there you go, right? Incredibly, Nawrocki has found himself as the fifth choice centre-back at Celtic.
Yeah,
he's played 9 minutes of football this season. And you think, again, going back to what I said before, that brutal kind of bold statement, if you can't play in a game like this, you shouldn't be at football club. Will Nawrocki get some minutes? I hope he does, Chris, because I don't like to see non-contributing players at the football club. And that's exactly what he's become.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's... for me, it seems like the writing's on the wall for him. I'm kind of surprised that he's still actually at the football club. And I thought he'd have taken any opportunity to leave, let alone the club, because he can't. Surely, at the point he is in his career, he must have the ambition to be playing week in, week out, you know, and not be. I mean, like, every player finds himself on the bench on occasion, but I mean, he's just not been able to make an impact on this first team lineup, and it's a little bit sad. I do feel for the player, but. I mean, maybe he's just not making the step up that the manager expects. So, for the sake of his career, if it's not going to happen here, let the boy move on.
See the thing, the point, and again, this is brilliant with hindsight, but this is the thing I would have expected the club to be looking at before shelling out £4.3 million, right, on Mike Nawrocki, who's played 9 minutes of football this season, as I keep saying. You look at his previous, and you've got to look at his previous, right? Now, when he was at Werder Bremen, he's playing in the second division, the second team rather. So these games are not competitive. You don't count them in the grand total, right? So he's played a total of 3 games on loan to Varta Poznan. He was then loaned out to Legia Warsaw, where he played 29 games for them on loan. And then he played 31 games for them in their first team as a permanent player. So when you look at this, this was my concern when looking back on this, right, is you've got a player there who's only played 63 games of senior football when Celtic have signed him. 63 games. Now, when we signed him, he was 22 years of age. 63 games at 22, Chris. Now, unless you're some kind of generational talent, I'm not taking a punt at £4 million on you. And it's not really with hindsight. The club should have looked at that. And you know what? That trend has developed because since he's come to Celtic, he's played 14 times. Most of them have been as a substitute. He's not played a lot of minutes. And as I say, those 9 solitary minutes this season, where did it all go wrong?
No, wish I knew. I really can't tell. I mean, it's I know there's been a little bit of disruption with injury. Occasionally he's come on and he's picked up a knock. When he's been on, he's not looked all over the place. I think there was one game where he looked pretty bad, but he's not looked, really too much out of sorts. You think there'd be something there for the manager to work with. But, I mean, maybe Brendan just sees more potential in a player like Dane Murray and wants to invest more time in developing that player. We know Brendan does like to develop a player, but I think there has to be willingness on the player side as well. And it wouldn't be an unreasonable assumption to say, well, from Brendan's perspective, maybe Nawrocki's just not stepping up to the mark. It's a shame. It is a shame. I think him and Lagerbielke, because they came in pretty close proximity to each other, their legacy will probably be, just a colossal waste of money. And I mean that, I don't mean that, to be disrespectful towards the players, but as a club who, we're not always the biggest spenders, to spend the amount of money we spent on those two players, and we've had no return on investment whatsoever.
No, and the legacy is the man who lines up in the starting 11 today, Liam Scales, because he's he is the guy that survived these centre halves coming to the football club. Nat Phillips being another one. You look at the midfield, Callum McGregor. I said I would have rested him actually today, and he lines up alongside McCowan and Bernardo. Now I believe my midfield was Engels, McCowan, Hatate. I think that was the midfield that I had predicted.
Yep, that was.
But it's a strong one. I mean, McCowan continually is praised. The honeymoon period is certainly over. So the one thing that I noticed about his game that needs to improve is his ball retention. Gives the ball a hell of a lot, gives the ball away. So today he starts against Raith Rovers, and you would expect him to kind of boss that and orchestrate the pace of the game. That's something that McGregor does, but McCowan can do it as well. Bernardo, for me, is the midfielder who I feel the sorriest for. I know that we're strong in the midfield, Chris, but he's getting the least game time out of the five midfielders. And for me, he's one of the better. I mean, Hatate until recently I thought was on a sugary peg, and I thought Bernardo should have been getting more game time. So I'll be interested to see how he does with a start.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Bernardo may be the one that's suffering the most from the fact that our captain, certainly in the eyes of the manager, is very much undroppable. I think, largely he merits that tag. There's been a couple of shaky performances this season. We have called him out. But I think, he brings so much to the table that he is a hard player to drop. That said, I would have agreed with you. I'd have dropped McGregor tonight and given him a rest, because I think on his game, he could be pivotal against Bayern. But maybe the manager wants to have him in there, just make sure the team, gets off to a good start, and then he potentially could bring him off. But Bernardo, for me, would have been the natural player to play in his place tonight. I wouldn't necessarily have started Engels, so I think can also operate as a number 6. But Bernardo's got that energy, he's got that ability to kind of pick up the ball and control the pace as well from deeper positions than McCowan. I think McCowan does it kind of back to front, which is nice. He can carry the ball forward, and I think that's one of the reasons why McCowan loses the possession so often, because he is bringing the ball forward into the more dangerous areas. And he's very much more like that kind of box-to-box player. I do like McCowan in the sense that I think he looks for the ball all the time. He looks for the responsibility. He doesn't shirk it. He doesn't kind of shy away from, taking a bit of accountability on the ball, which is great. So I'm looking forward to seeing what both Bernardo and McCowan can bring to the table. The hope is that, not only do we get a good performance out of our captain tonight, but he actually stays, injury-free as well, because he is such a big player to have to try and replace. And with such a big game coming up, we really need him. But it's. I mean, the luxury the manager's got is you've got 5 players, in the squad that can all slip into the midfield 3 at any point. They can all do slight different variations of the job required. And he's got the option to take one out if it's not working, put one in, and more often than not, it does work.
No, it does. I mean, we all know it's difficult to keep everybody happy. The rotational question was asked yesterday at the press conference, to which the bold Brendan said, "Listen, I've been rotating the players since I came here." And actually, when you look at it, he has been. He's been doing just that. Someone has commented on the Celtic top behind us. Well spotted. Yes, this was a jersey that has been donated to us, and you look at the signatures, it's of that era. It's the treble winning side under Martin O'Neill. Henrik is on it. It's a phenomenal gift. that's been donated to us for our appeal for wee Jamie Tierney. This is something that's ongoing and will continue to be ongoing to support Jamie and his family. And from time to time, what you'll get, you've had it, I've got it, Chris, people actually handing stuff in and saying, you know what, this is a cracking piece of kit, or it's a framed item. I love it, but it's gathering dust somewhere. Why don't you put that out there on one of your events? And that's what we've been doing. So thank you very much for everybody who continues to support that. Brian Murphy actually said this just as you were talking about Callum McGregor. He'll play until it's secure and then he'll come off. I'm really keen to get the thoughts of the viewers in. Barry O'Sullivan came in nice and early. Very interesting team, says Barry. Brendan Rodgers has more than one eye on Wednesday evening's game. Really looking forward to seeing how the boys go. There's a freshness and there is actually an expectation when you get names in there and you're thinking, all right, it'll be interesting to see how Murray does. Sinny Salo, Schlup. And not only for the observer, but I think it brings a freshness to the team as well, Chris. And that's why transfer windows are so important, to freshen things up, keeps everybody on their toes, keeps them at the top of their powers.
It absolutely is, yeah. And I mean, you know, Nicholas Kuhn's come in tonight, for example. He obviously was rested, you know, in the previous game for Jota to come in and then come on and had an incredible impact himself. We know what Kuhn can do this season. But now he's looking, you know, at the bench and he's seeing Jota sitting there, for example. And he's thinking, okay, well, I need to keep my levels high here because I want to maintain my place, which, you know, he's very much got the jersey. Maeda, you know, is moved into what I think is a centre forward position tonight. So, you know, Ida will be looking at that saying, I've been on good form here, but, you know, we know what this wee fella can do. So there was good competition in certain areas, and I quite like that. We'd probably have liked, you know, someone else, at least one more coming in on the transfer window. We've spoken about that to death, but ultimately these are the players. You know, the interesting one is tonight, and it goes back to your point about being selected and actually performing in a cup game against Raith Rovers. Yang has found himself still at this football club when I think at the start of the window, many people would have seen him going out on loan potentially, or if not leaving permanently. He's there. The manager selected him tonight. You know, the same way Brendan's maybe assessing Nawrocki and saying he's not prepared to make the step up. He must be seeing something in Yang that says, I'm going to persist with this guy. I'm going to keep giving this guy opportunities to see what he can do. He must be doing something in training.
What is it?
Well, I'm not sure. Maybe there's a T run or something. I'm sorry, that's disrespectful. But the point is that if he cannot perform tonight in a game like this, if he can't bring something meaningful to the team, then I have to question why he keeps getting selected. Because there are surely better options within the wider squad.
Well, you know this. You don't want to be disrespectful, but at the same time, Chris, you've got to see you've got to say what you see. What was the name? The name of that show? Catchphrase.
Oh, catchphrase. Yeah, right.
And I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it. That's all it is. That's all I'm going to say when it comes to it. And you're right. Again, going back to what we've said before, if you can't do it tonight, then you've got to really question whether or not that player is Celtic class. Emma McMahon was the kind donator of the jersey. Emma and Barry came along to a recent event with John Hartson and handed the jersey in, and it's a stunner, as the commenter said. You know, with these things, leading up to the last fundraiser, I think it was in November last year, there was a big fundraiser in Fife for wee Jamie. The Acsom contributions were incredible, from people tuning in, sending stuff to us, bringing it to live events. I think there was maybe 12 or maybe 14 items or something framed up, and they were part of the big auction on the night, all coming from the Acsom crew. So thank you very much to everybody who continually supports what we're doing. It makes a massive difference to these people in their lives. It really does. Jungle Lion, what would a match day bulletin be without Jungle Lion jumping in? Here we go. Let's enjoy the ride. That sounds like a bit of a Jota thing to say. Let's enjoy the ride. And Eddie Quigley, can't get why Brendan wouldn't start Kenny before Yang. That kind of follows on from what you were saying there, Chris. You look to a scenario whereby you're looking at a squad where you've more or less replaced what you see as weak links. Yang's one of those weak links. We don't know if Kenny is, because he's not played the same level of games. He's made 2 substitute appearances, right? One against Ross County away, one against Dundee the other night. Yang has had 18 months. He's played over 50 games of football. He's played about the same amount of games as Kuhn, yet he's not made that impact. He's not made the impact that you need from a winger. Now, I get that, you know, and by the way, it's fair enough to say it. It must be doing something right. he must be doing something right, because he'd have been chased like Palmer. His attitude's obviously much better, and his application is good. But in terms of his performances, I just can't see it, Eddie.
Yeah, the output's not there. The output's not there. But I think the Kenny one's an interesting point, though, because Kenny is a little bit of an unknown, but we could end up coming to rely on him. If, for example, we know we've got Maeda suspended for the Bayern game. Ida's hitting form, great. He's firmly the first choice striker. But Kenny surely is the relief player then for Ida in that match, because who else do you bring in unless you play a player out of position up front, or you go with a false nine or something like that? Kenny is your man you bring on when Ida tires or if anything happens to Ida during that game. So I would have liked to have seen Kenny get some minutes tonight, probably from the start. I mean, I'm hoping he'll come on. Could be that maybe Brendan's thinking longer term. Okay, Maeda is very much my second choice striker, because we see what he does week in, week out. But with such a big game on the horizon, I would have bled Kenny in this game. I really would have.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the forward line, then the only area of the park that we haven't really focused on, you're looking at Maeda and thinking, right, are we going to play him through the middle? And if so, that's an interesting prospect as well, Chris, because
yes,
ever since pre-Celtic days, Liam Carrigan has been telling us all about Maeda's effectiveness through the middle, and we've only seen it fleetingly in a Celtic jersey, so it'll be interesting if that is indeed his position tonight, with Kuhn on the right and Yang on the left. Then you look at the strength of, let's say, 5 substitutes. So you've got Taylor, Jota, Ida, Engels, and Atati, who can all come in and make a massive difference. You've got the perennial unused sub, Scotty Bain. Bainzo, he's driving the car share. He is on the cards and all the rest of it. He's going to get a testimonial, and I can't wait to see who the opponents are. I'd go to that testimonial just for the crack. I mean, listen.
Absolutely.
We talk about Callum McGregor making 500 appearances. Scott Bain's next target is 300 unused substitute appearances. That is phenomenal. No one has made so many unused substitute appearances as Scott Bain. And, I'm looking forward to his jersey being presented to him on the football pitch as well. Now, it would be remiss of us not to look at the Raith Rovers team. You think I'm joking. I am deadly serious, Chris. There's the Raith Rovers team. There they are, as managed by former Celtic Barry Robson. We've got Ray, Dick, Hanlon, Murray, Matthews, Mullen, Brown, Doherty, Easton, Stevenson, and Gullen on the bench. Dabrowski, Fordyce, Conley, McNeil, Gibson, Pollock, Marsh, and Montague. And it's a team that, again, there's a player at Raith Rovers, Lewis Vaughan, who I feel so sorry for the guy. He's had the worst possible luck when it comes to knee injuries. If you look at his record in terms of his goal scoring throughout his Raith Rovers career, he's an absolute goal machine. He's had a testimonial already, even though he's only 28, because it looks as though his career is going to be cut short. And he, in any other world, if he's on the park, he's a danger man. But I mean, I think basically when Barry Robson comes into the football club, it's all about just trying to get some kind of confidence back in his team, because Raith Rovers were flying last season. They were flying. And then at the beginning of this season, Ian Murray gets unceremoniously served his jotters, Chris. And then this is the second managerial change since then. Barry Robson's come in, and obviously he's got the big one. He's got Celtic. But you know what? People talking about it's a cup game, anything can happen. Absolutely. But we need to have enough on that park, regardless of the permutation of the starting 11, to get the job done tonight. Listen, I am still scarred, and I'm going to admit it, from the Coca-Cola Cup final, 94-95, right? So no mercy when we go into the game tonight, Chris.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I mean, I think you can show every opponent all the respect in the world and respect they're due. But let's face facts. We are a, far bigger club in terms of resource, in terms of, everything we've got at our disposal. I mean, it should, as we always say, on paper, be an absolute no-brainer in terms of predicting the type of result we're going to get tonight. But that's not to say, it's 90 minutes where, different circumstances can occur, different factors. But if I was a Celtic manager, I'd be saying to the players, look, opportunity tonight, go out, play your game, get the result over the line nice and early, and then, actually go and showcase some of your skills. Show me why you deserve to be in consideration for, say, the Bayern game, or, for the, key games in the rest of the campaign. Set the challenge to the players, and actually, pay some pay some tribute to the supporters that are out there on a really cold night and going to the park and cheering you on. Put on a bit of a show, as the song says, as the song goes, really.
No, without a doubt. I'm going to bring in some comments before we get into the action. It is, of course, the Premier Sports Cup, and it'll be live on Premier Sports as well. Now, you've got Patman67, fingers crossed for young Dane Murray.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing with Dane Murray, you look at his journey as a Celtic player, Chris. We continually go on about young players not breaking through to the Celtic side. Dane Murray was thrown in at the deep end, aged 18, against Midtjylland for Ange Postecoglou's first competitive game. It was a Champions League qualifier. And Near Beaton, one of the most experienced players on the park, let us down that night, gets sent off.
Remember, yeah.
Dane Murray comes on and then has to start the away leg. And we go through to extra time, but we still get bounced out at that point. So that's Dane Murray's introduction to Celtic senior football. He then has a horrendous injury and fights back from it. Fights back for that injury. Is rewarded with a new contract and then loaned out to Queen's Park. But he's one of these guys. He wasn't loaned out and then just forgotten about. He was loaned out. He put in the shift. He put in the performances, and he was recalled when Stephen Welsh left the football club. So Patman's right. Fingers crossed for young Dane Murray, because the first game he comes back into is an Aston Villa game where we're still in the game. And I'll still go back to, I don't think the ball should have been thrown to him, but he was too casual. Obviously, the game was too quick for him. We conceded the goal, and it was frustrating for him, I'm pretty sure. So it's great to see him getting a start tonight. Let's look at the positive on that one, Chris.
Yeah, 100%. Particularly, in light of what you just said about the player Vaughan there, and how his career has been impacted. It's a really short career. When you compare it to the normal careers that we all have, it's very, very short. And these guys have to make
career? My career lasted till I was 18. Then I realised I was no good. Just about everybody else in the comments is nodding along. If it wasn't for that dodgy elbow, I'd have made it.
Absolutely, yeah, could have been a contender. But no, I think the fact is he's come back from what could have been a really very much a career-threatening injury, and look, he's been given his opportunity tonight. Challenges on him to step up and show that he deserves his place tonight. He's alongside Liam Scales, another player who's kind of risen from the ashes a wee bit in terms of his Celtic career. He's got good, experienced, quality players around him. There he is, Leo Scalacci. I need to get that framed and up on the wall, actually. That's such a good picture. Yeah, it's really good. I definitely. People will come in years and say, "Who was that player?" Years from now.
Leo Scalacci.
Who was that? He looks like a World Cup winner. But go back to Dane. I mean, you hate to see a young player get involved in an incident which could really hit his confidence. And coming on in the Champions League, should have been the biggest night of his life at that point. And for a combination of circumstances, doesn't go the way he would have wanted it. Now it's a measure of his resilience, his mentality to say, okay, manager's thrown me in tonight. It's a cup game. I'm playing centre back, one of the key positions. All he has to do tonight is keep it simple, do his job well, and show that he's prepared to, be a part of this squad going forward. He's put the miles in, and look, I think throughout this season, particularly if we kind of get the league done pretty early, he'll get opportunities. He'll get more opportunities, but tonight's a big one because it's a competition we want to win. Doesn't matter who the opposition is, he's got to go out there and do his fundamentals well. So yeah, absolutely best of luck to him tonight. I hope he does it.
This is the standard and the level of opposition that he was playing against, obviously, during his loan period, which he excelled.
Of course, yeah, that's a good point.
And also the fact that Trusty and CCV are not on the bench should be a vote of confidence for the kid, because, listen, nothing against Nawrocki, but we've not used them. 9 minutes. I don't know if I've mentioned that. 9 minutes this season. Here we go. Corvo, NUFC. It's 2025, and I still can't believe Benzo is still... You've got to call him Benzo. Corvo, NUFC, is still here. He is here, and he's always here. Absolutely. And I'm glad he's here, because if he wasn't here, who'd be on the bench? Who'd be the sub-goalie tonight? We don't have another one. Ian Roy, the money the club have wasted over the last few seasons on bad signings is utterly disgraceful. And I know that's not an exact science, Ian, but it is frustrating. It's really frustrating because you think 7.3 million quid on two centre-halves. We could have gone out and got another trusty for that. It is frustrating. Brian, it's simply not good enough, mate, if you're going to be late for the stream. Make sure you hit the notifications bell for future streams. We will be back at half-time and full-time as well, Brian. I'm only kidding, of course. The Slabber and Cabbage. here we go. Hail, hail, troops. Was just watching the Kevin McKenna episode and almost missed this. Well, I hope you enjoyed it.
It's not a bad excuse, is it? That's all right.
It's fine. It's on Acsom content. That's no problem. The only thing that I need from you, Chris, before we get stuck into the action, is a prediction. How do you think we're going to fare tonight? Do you agree with Monty, who thinks it's going to be 4-0 Celtic?
Well, I thought I was being pretty optimistic the other night, and I went for 5-0, and I think Sean went for 4-0, and both of us were wrong. We ended up with 6. So do you know what? I'm going to be even more optimistic tonight. I think it should be a statement tonight. Full respect to the opposition, but we've got enough about us to do it. And remember some of the players we could bring off the bench. Hopefully Jota will get some minutes. So I'm going to go at least a 6-0 again. I'm going for it. I want big goals. I like
the confidence. CJ says that She Sells Sanctuary's been on the tannoy or on the sound system, the PA. Give that DJ a rise. That is probably for the cult hero that is Dyson Maida. Go and enjoy the action. Join us at half time on a Celtic State of Mind.
Hail, hail. 1 Hoops.